Unternehmen, die an einem Mechanismus verdienen, der sich als langfristig dann doch sehr schädlich herausstellt, sind eher daran interessiert, dieses unter den Tisch zu kehren, als ihre Methoden umzuändern. Immer und immer und immer wieder sehen wir diesen Mechanismus. Immer und immer und immer wieder. Zigaretten, Alkohol, Mikroplastik, immer und immer und immer wieder.
Saranac Laboratories to do studies of asbestos on animals, but the companies insisted on controlling what from those studies will be made public. As a letter from Van Diver points out, it is our further understanding that the results obtained will be considered the property of those who are advancing the required funds, who will determine whether, to what extent, and in what manner they shall be made public. A clause to which Saranac Laboratories said yes. But after the lead researcher who was compiling all this evidence died in 1946, the companies agreed that nothing should be published that contained any objectionable material. Objectionable meaning any sort of indication that asbestos causes cancer. So when Saranac Laboratories finished their research, the companies took the report, edited it, and just buried the evidence. Here's an original copy of that manuscript, and you can find whole sections just crossed out. Other documents were even more damning. A Johns Manville medical official later testified that up until 1971, the company had a policy of not telling their workers if their physicals showed signs of asbestosis or asbestos-related lung cancers. And in sworn testimony, a witness recalled a meeting they had in the early 1940s with the president of Johns Manville, asking why they weren't warning workers about asbestos. As the witness recalls it, they asked, "Do you mean to tell me you would let them work until they dropped dead?" To which the president replied, "Yes, we save a lot of money that way."
Jesus Christ.
Once the Sumner-Simpson papers got out, they unlocked a new industrial Watergate. The industry's standard, "oh, we didn't know" defense, it simply fell apart. Comparisons were made to Big Tobacco's concealment of smoking risks. And the lawsuits surged. Each case brought new discovery, and each round of discovery exposed a wider, more coordinated cover-up. Ever since the word asbestosis started showing up in medical journals in the 1920s, Johns Manville went out to secure the market around itself. First, they acquired the biggest rock wool company. Then they acquired a firm holding the key patents to calcium silicate insulation.
Adventuring is right up my alley.
Now, at the same time, companies that had non-asbestos insulation were incentivized into creating asbestos product lines. With each acquisition or inducement, another potential competitor lost the ability to denounce asbestos and say, "oh, we have an asbestos-free product." So each in turn became a member of this conspiracy of silence. That is how the asbestos industry guaranteed its survival, by ensuring no one could speak out against it.
We suggest you consider asbestos for the walls of your home.
Holy fuck, Alter.
They're business decisions, and the people who make them are businessmen. I mean, the word morality or moral obligation is almost non-existent in the corporate documents.
In 1982, Johns Manville filed for bankruptcy protection.
Manville Corporation's board of directors has determined that the corporation should file for reorganization under Chapter 11 of the Bankruptcy Act.
Not because they were broke, but in a move widely seen as a way to shield the company from a flood of asbestos lawsuits.
Klar.
Despite all the evidence against them, Johns Manville survived. They continue operating to this day.
Was?
Although they no longer produce asbestos.
Digga. Nee.
Between 1940 and 1980, the asbestos industry, led by Johns Manville, exposed roughly 21 million Americans to these fibers. Asbestos-related deaths amounted to at least 8,000 to 10,000 people every year, with many more suffering lifelong disease. In 1989, the EPA issued a rule to phase out almost all asbestos use in the United States. And that should have been the end of the story. But the industry sued immediately, not because anyone disputed asbestos causes cancer. That was undeniable by this point, but because of a legal technicality.
I cannot help but be
under the law,
stirred.
the EPA had to prove that an outright ban of asbestos was the only solution, and that anything less than that just wouldn't cut it. This was an almost impossible feat. Now, the industry argued that they hadn't done that, And unfortunately, the US courts agreed. So in 1991, they ruled that the EPA just hadn't met this narrow legal standard. And with that, the asbestos ban was dead in the water. But by then, asbestos had become so financially and legally risky for the companies that manufactured it or used it that its overall use did actually decline. Yet, in the end, after years of trying to define and regulate asbestos, the only thing that truly stuck around was a definition, and a narrow one. Chrysotile and 5 amphiboles, because these were the only ones being mined, sold, and used in factories. Those 6 became the official asbestos minerals. And anything else, no matter how fiber-like or potentially dangerous, well, that doesn't count.
The FDA, for the first time in 50 years, considering testing for asbestos in cosmetics and talc powder.
Traces
In fucking Kosmetikprodukten.
of it have now been detected in children's
If you ever have any
play
questions about the
Thousands of people are claiming that they developed various forms of cancer after years of using Johnson & Johnson's baby powder.
Is this all the stuff that you've collected over the years?
No, it's not all of it. But this box is full of all the Claire's labeled products that I found asbestos in. Everything little girls could possibly want to have their makeup in. Like, oh, I don't know. How about sparkly boxes, right?
Yeah.
And there's a cell phone,
Yes.
right, with eyeshadows on it,
Yeah.
right? There's asbestos in there. There's asbestos in the unicorn. There's
all of that?
Yes. All of these have asbestos in them. I started seeing asbestos fibers everywhere.
Everywhere. Okay.
The eyeshadows, the blush, they all had asbestos fibers, right? Wow. Okay.
What year was this?
2017.
What?
2017.
I thought it was going to be like 1980 or something. What?
No.
2017?
Yes.
Whoa.
And the manufacturer came back and said there's no way. And they sponsored another laboratory to look at the same samples, and they said, no, none of this counts as asbestos. It's all cleavage fragments, or sepulite, clay, or something like that. And it was balderdash, right? I called friends all across the states and said, hey, do you have a Claire's store near you? Can you find the sparkly box, right? And send it to me, pronto. There's Claire's all in all of the malls all across America, and then I looked further, and it's all over the world. I mean, every mall, everywhere. And I ended up testing Claire's from Brazil to Japan, to London. I found asbestos.
Are you fucking kidding me, bro? Willst du mich komplett verarschen, Bruder?
No way.
Right. So that turned into...
Aktueller Fall vom 26.02.2026. In den Medien wird über Asbest im Spielsand berichtet. In Neuseeland, Australien, Belgien und den Niederlanden wurden in Proben verschiedene Spielsets Rückstände von Asbest in nicht unerheblichem Maß gefunden. Digga, das ist vom 26.02. Das ist vor 4 Tagen gemacht worden. Das ist diese Woche. Kindersand. Ich verlinke euch mal den Verbraucherzentrale-Artikel dazu. Das kommt wohl irgendwie auch aus den Niederlanden. Jesus fucking Christ.
A huge story, right? And now I don't think you can buy very much talc-based cosmetics at Claire's now, but it was a several years long battle.
Oh mein Gott, Alter.
These are different products that were sold at toy stores. Like here's the secret spy kit.
Yeah.
And you see there's a fingerprint kit there,
Yes.
right? And in that fingerprint kit was a powder in which I found asbestos fibers. Say it ain't so, Mickey Mouse crayons.
No.
I found asbestos in those.
And this keeps happening. Just a couple of months ago, around 70 schools in Australia and New Zealand had to close down because of the asbestos found in children's playsound. Out of the 60 outlets that reported on this story, only 24% were from right-leaning sources. Depending on where you get your news, this might have never crossed our radar, which is a problem because public health information like this shouldn't fall through the cracks. And this is why we've asked Ground News to sponsor this video. They compile news from outlets all over the world in one place so that you can easily see the partisan split. And with their color-coded layout, it's also easy to sort your news by factuality, ownership, and source, so that you can see how a story like this is getting covered side by side with all the context you need. Take these two headlines, for example. This article from the Herald Sun only talks about the fear of asbestos, while this very high factuality source firmly states that asbestos was found in decorative sand. That difference matters. I would like to know whether a mere suspicion or actual asbestos contamination. And that's why I find Ground News so useful. You get the full picture, not just one headline sensationalizing for clicks. And they also have a dedicated blind spot feed for stories like these that are, disproportionately covered by either side of the political spectrum, all to help people avoid their echo chambers. Now, we partnered up with Ground News because we share the same mission, getting to the truth. And that's why we're offering 40% off their Vantage plan at ground.news/VE. So if you want to support the channel, but also want a clearer understanding of the world, check out that link in the description, or you can also scan this QR code.
May knowledge guide you.
For sponsoring this part of the video. And now let's go figure out why asbestos is even getting into all these consumer products.
Ja,
Now,
das interessiert mich jetzt auch. How the fuck kommt es da noch rein?
no one is intentionally putting asbestos in makeup or kids' toys. So how did something we know is deadly just end up everywhere? Well, it's an unfortunate consequence of where asbestos forms, and nowhere makes that more clear than Libby, Montana.
It kind of breaks my heart to talk about it. The mine up there is vermiculite mine. It's about 5-6 miles north.
Vermiculite is a mineral that is used in everything from insulation to fireproofing to potting soil. On its own, it's harmless. The problem was Libby's vermiculite formed mixed in with amphibole asbestos fibers. And the same thing happens with other minerals we mine, including stuff like talc. That's how asbestos ends up in products like the ones we saw at Sean's lab. And the worst part? The company that owned and operated the mine, W.R. Grace, they knew. They knew the ore contained asbestos, they knew people were getting sick, and they didn't warn the town. In fact, they tried to cover it up.
Alter, dann kann man doch nicht davon sprechen, dass das eine Hier wurde gerade eben der Eindruck erweckt, und das ist wichtig zu korrigieren, hier wurde gerade der Eindruck erweckt, das passiert so, weil alles nicht wussten. Aber es irgendwie kommt immer raus, dass die Unternehmen das alle wussten und gesagt haben, nö, lieber nicht.
For almost 30 years.
They had hundreds.
Oh Mann, Alter. Irgendwer in der Kette steht doch da und vertuscht das dann.
Workers in there. And of course, when the miners would go home, they had dust all over their clothes, and their kids and their wives got it and died as well. But the doctors up around Libby, they knew. Boy, did they know.
Besides the London
Rain outlines your
long
fate.
associated with asbestos exposure, researchers were also finding rates.
Genau, die von der Mine wussten es, aber die Flugzeuge nicht. Das ist genau das Problem. Weil das ist ja trotzdem in der Kette dann ein klarer Verantwortlicher. Und das Problem ist, diese
Rain cutter. Get to work.
Nearly 6 times higher than the national average. And by the time the Libby issue hit the headlines in 1999, reporters documented nearly 200 deaths in a town of fewer than 3,000.
And it can take 20 years for it to go, but pretty soon you have no breath at all, and you die of asphyxiation. I could tell talking on the phone by somebody's voice how far along they were toward death, because none of them survived.
Finally, in 2009, the EPA declared a public health emergency in Libby, calling it the worst case of industrial poisoning of a community in U.S. history.
But Libby's just the tip of the iceberg.
Because
Alter, ey, und das ist das hier, das hier, es gibt, glaube ich, keinen besseren sich manifestierenden Grund, ist es so wichtig zu wissen, woher, also Lieferkettengesetze, ne? Also Lieferketten einfach klar zu machen und zu sagen, hey, jo, also, ne, wo wird denn das Make-up? Also wenn das gerade in so Schwerpunkten Kinderspielzeug, Hier scheint ja schon so ein Fokus auch auf Kinderspielzeug zu legen. Da sollte schon ein bisschen klar sein, okay, woher... Also das scheint ja dann wirklich schon relevant zu sein.
For decades, W.R. Grace shipped Libby vermiculite around the country, and with it, deadly affable asbestos, which ended up in millions of homes as attic insulation. And Grace also made a fireproof spray that was used on the steel frames of high-rise buildings. By 1970, over half of the multi-story buildings erected in the United States used this fireproof spray.
Auch das World Trade Center dann.
Including the World Trade Center.
Oh Mann.
But this spray was actually marketed as asbestos-free. According to a later investigation by the New York Times, Grace lobbied regulators to adopt a threshold under which products containing less than 1% of asbestos would not be regulated. Grace argued that the danger of such small amounts had not been proved.
Ja, aber in großen Mengen kommen sie ja... Oh mein Gott, what the fuck?
This became known as the 1% rule, or the Grace rule. That decision didn't just affect the products from Libby's mine, it reshaped how asbestos was detected, regulated, and ignored everywhere.
Oh mein Gott, dieser Rauch, ne?
Okay, when that went down, I knew it. I knew they had asbestos, and so I started calling. I said, how are you going to protect people from that? Because now that stuff's all over the place. You saw the dust clouds, right?
September 11th became the largest real-world test of asbestos detection following a single catastrophic event.
The dust is so thick you can't see.
When the EPA began sampling the dust and analyzing it, they chose a method we used back at the lab called polarized light microscopy, or PLM. But the PLM has two major limitations. First, it struggles to detect asbestos if it's less than 1% by weight in the sample. And second, it can only see the fibers that are roughly longer than about 5 micrometers or wider than about a quarter of a micrometer. As a result, the smallest and oftentimes most dangerous fibers, like the ones pulverized during the collapse of the towers, are difficult to detect using just the PLM. To reliably find these, you need transmission electron microscopy, or TEM.
Well, we top out at about 1,000 times with the light microscopy. This tops out at about 1 million times. But what we need to see is just what are the finest fibers that are potentially can go into your lung.
Without having used a TEM, the EPA declared...
Ja, die Untertitel sind automatische Übersetzungen, aber das ist nur der Notanker für Leute, die gerade wirklich gar nicht mit dem Englisch anfangen können. Der Rest, den interessiert das gar nicht und der kann ja zuhören. Jungs, ich kann das doch nicht. Das ist doch nur gerade dafür da, damit Leute, die gar nicht wissen, was los ist, so ein bisschen was mitbekommen.
New York's air is safe.
Everything we've tested for, which includes asbestos, lead, and VOCs, have been below any level of concern for the general public health.
But some researchers after 9/11 actually did do studies with TEM. They found asbestos levels far above the EPA's own safety thresholds in most of their samples. And the report also warned that because many of these fibers were actually smaller than normal, they were especially dangerous. They posted their results on the American Industrial Hygiene Association website, but within hours, their post disappeared. Less than 24 hours later, the researchers were notified they had been taken off the job and were no longer required at Ground Zero.
Oh no!
One former EPA chief investigator later went on CBS saying they believe the agency had deliberately used the wrong testing methods and downplayed the danger.
Vertuschungsaktion again, Alter. What the fuck?
City directly lied about the test results for asbestos in the air. When they finally released them, they doctored the results.
We don't know if that's true, but to be clear, PLM is still widely used to detect asbestos because it's faster, it's cheaper, it's easier to deploy. But what we do know is two things. First, the PLM method was not sensitive enough to detect whether there were asbestos fibers in the dust at Ground Zero. And second, the EPA did have other, more sensitive methods available to them. Whatever the motives, the result was the same. New Yorkers were told that the air was safe when it really wasn't. And as of December 2023, 6,781 of those who have been registered with the World Trade Center Health Program have died either of an illness or a cancer linked just to their time being around Ground Zero.
Ja, diese ganze Luftverschmutzung hat 3-mal mehr Leute umgebracht als der Terrorakt selbst.
But even if the EPA had used the TEM, the answer would still not be simple, because even then, researchers run into a more basic problem. What actually counts as asbestos?
Is there asbestos in the air? Is there asbestos in the soil? Is there asbestos in the water? Is there asbestos in the body? All of those counting rules are based on fibers that are not super long, but they're way longer than the vast majority of, say, libby-amphibole fibers, and the vast majority of fibers that are inhaled. So they're not even counting those. They're not even looking for those. The ways that we are right now telling people whether they're being exposed or not is a lot.
And when longer fibers break, forming these so-called cleavage fragments, they don't count either.
Yeah, there's a whole effort to say, oh yeah, if it's been broken, it's not dangerous. But there's so many papers out there that show that if you put pure cleavage fragments into mice, they get very, very sick.
This really matters when you're in a place like this, and you realize the dust could be considered asbestos contaminated under one definition and perfectly safe under another.
Nobody would have expected to find asbestos here.
To be clear, there were no asbestos mines in Nevada, no industrial sites, no history of asbestos commercial use at all, but geologists Brenda Buck and Rut Metcalf found asbestos spread across approximately 1 million acres outside Las Vegas.
Geologic processes transport these materials, and before the erosion started, they were just in the bedrocks along the mountain front. Now they're in sediments down there, they're in the stream here.
And the problem with the naturally occurring stuff like this is it may be only a small percentage in the rock and even a smaller percentage in the soil, but this stuff gets in the air.
Entire communities might be
Alter, die laufen da rum wie in, also das ist in kompletten Schutzanzügen. Das ist so crazy.
Breathing it in and getting sick without knowing. So Brenda and Rod tried to warn people. Back in late 2012, they compiled all of their findings for a presentation at the Conference of the Geological Society of America. But before the conference even began, the abstract caught the attention of a journalist who reported on the story. And that's when the pushback started. Soon, the state of Nevada sent a cease and desist letter, and officials questioned Brenda and Rod's methods.
So if you go to Las Vegas, you're going to get exposed to asbestos. They didn't want that out there.
Every time I drove into Gold City, there was an official telling me within a minute.
The message was clear. Don't look any further. Well, we did decide to look further, so we drove out into the desert to a popular off-roading spot to test whether there really is asbestos in the dust around Las Vegas.
Okay, I'm strapped into a dune buggy here. I'm going to go
Oh mein Gott, no fucking way.
down in that basin, and Sean's strapped up some dust collectors with receivers in my breathing zone so we can actually figure out how much asbestos I would be inhaling through the dust that I kick up. You see those donuts on?
Yeah, you were ripping it up down there.
Yeah, from a geological point of view, any notes?
It rained today. I thought about that while I was watching. I was like, there might not be much dust, but these are the air samples that are hanging in your breathing zone,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And I looked at them, and the filters have some tanning on them.
Oh, that's good.
Which means we actually did get some dust. We don't know what's in it yet, but there's something in there.
But the original plan was for us to actually do this at the dry lake bed just outside Boulder City, because this is where people do the majority of their off-roading. They camp, they do photo shoots, even take their wedding photos, except not on the day that we were there. Okay, we're out here on the dry lake bed, supposedly, in Las Vegas, where on the one day that we're here, the lake has decided not to be dry in any sort of definition. Oh my God. And so what we're gonna go do is suit up, get some samples, and figure out how much asbestos there really is in this stuff.
Das sind ja dann die besten Voraussetzungen, so wenig wie möglich zu finden, oder? Also wenn das dann alles überhaupt nicht trocken ist, überhaupt nicht aufstaubt, dann sollte es ja eigentlich überhaupt nichts kleben bleiben.
Okay. We're gonna do a third. Let's go up that island.
Hey, imagine, du machst da deine Offroad-Sachen, da laufen einfach Leute rum in Schutzanzügen. Mit so kompletten Safe-Mechanismen. Und du denkst so, okay.
Okay, got the samples. Next step, take them to the lab.
Great to see you guys. That's good.
Yeah, good to see you too. Well, we're here for one thing, I suppose. Like, what kind of results did we get?
Now, the big review. Drum roll, please. I did the dune air samples first.
Rise with the sun!
Those samples that you had on your left and right shoulder. I didn't find any asbestos fibers.
Well, I guess that's a bit of a relief. I'm glad we
did
the demonstration, and I'm kind of glad we didn't find anything, because I'm pretty sure I took my mask off at a few points.
I've been in those shoes, like, we didn't find anything. Oh, but wait a minute. I was breathing that.
Exactly. So what about the samples in the dry lake bed?
Another drum roll. I found amphibole asbestos.
Wow. Okay.
It's there. It is there. I counted up a number of fibers, the area of the filter that I analyzed, and I figured out that we had between 30 and 50 million asbestos structures per gram of mud that we were walking through.
Whoa.
Oh my God.
Just to think that we...
Oh mein Gott, Alter.
We pulled off to the side of the road, walked, what, 30 meters, took 3 samples, and all of them had these incredibly high concentrations of asbestos right there. It's not like we had to go out to find.
Very wet soil was lucky for us because we know there's asbestos in that soil. Now, think about the guys that go taking their Jeep across there when it is a dry lake.
I mean, that was our initial plan, to do the dune buggying there. And I can't like help but think about people drive down that road all the time. They must pull over. They must go down there.
Oh my God, bro.
Like, just kick dust and rocks, and...
We know they do. We know they do.
And there's no sign to tell you that there's anything wrong with the dry lake. It's not like we, discovered this. This has been available data since
October of 2013 is the actual publication date of naturally occurring asbestos.
Alter, da wird einem übel, ne? Also da wird einem wirklich schlecht, wenn man darüber nachdenkt. Das ist eine Touristenattraktion, die testen das, das kommt zurück, schwer, hochgradig asbestverseucht und nichts, aber auch gar nichts ist die Konsequenz.
Asbestos, potential for human
Die Konsequenz ist, reden Sie da mal nicht drüber, wir brauchen die ganzen Touristen. Holy fuck.
exposure in southern Nevada
oh
by Brenda Buck et al.
So 13 years we've had this data. It's not like we'd rediscovered anything.
And that's the other thing that's really hard about this science. We need the public to be aware, but
Was für ein Trauma. Überall verarbeitet, überall gebaut, in jedem Haus, in jeder Abdeckung, in jeder Isoliermasse, irgendwo wird es drin sein. Alles, was so in den 70ern gebaut wurde, hat vermutlich Asbest in seinen, also 80er, scheiße 90er. Da wird irgendwo Asbest sein. Die ganzen Müllhalden und die ganzen Entsorgungssachen sind ja auch voll davon. Wie entsorgt man denn, wie wickelt man denn Asbest ab, wenn das so ein widerstandsfähiger Stoff ist?
you don't want to terrify them. And so how do you find the right way?
This will potentially be seen by tens of millions of people, so is there a message you want to get out?
This is a natural hazard, just like a lot of things in your life. It's really good for people to know whether or not their house is in a flooding zone, right? It's really good to know about earthquake risks. It's really good to know about hurricanes and tornadoes. Well, this is just another natural hazard, and if you have the information, then you can make better decisions to live a healthier life.
Oh man.
One big problem is that asbestos in the real world doesn't line up with how it's regulated. Take this fiber. It comes from a sample of the same blue asbestos from the site outside Las Vegas we visited at the start of the video.
I think we have two different phases, at least, of amphibole here, because if it's yellow in this orientation, but also blue in this orientation, in the same fiber bundle, then we have a change in the phase from here to here.
So this one fiber is actually two minerals, and that complexity shows up in its structure too. Under the electron microscope, one side could meet the definition of asbestos, the other may not, simply because of its shape. So one single fiber could fall within one of the 6 named and regulated asbestos minerals if you look at one side, but the other would be completely unregulated. Your lungs don't care about these categories.
The asbestos fiber, you'll find it everywhere. No ordinary rock. No single rock, indeed, but a group of related minerals with characteristics in common, but in varying degrees.
Most experts will say asbestos isn't a mineralogic or a geologic term, it's commercial. But that's symbolic. Why do I say that? Because it's not just a commercial term. We now know that asbestos can kill you. If we're going to say that, we have to define
Show no mercy.
And we don't.
So what are we actually doing?
The system was so complex and so burdensome that our country hasn't even been able to uphold a ban on asbestos, a known carcinogen that kills as many as 10,000 Americans every year.
Well, in 2016, Congress did try to fix this broken system. They passed an amendment giving the EPA new power to evaluate and restrict dangerous chemicals, including asbestos.
I think it's time to sign the Frank R. Lautenberg Chemical Safety for the 21st Century Act into law.
Oh mein Gott, hat Donald Trump es schon abgeschafft?
But then progress stalled again. Under the Trump administration, efforts to strengthen asbestos rules slowed dramatically. Trump had publicly praised asbestos for
oh mein Gott, dieser
years.
A lot of people in my industry think asbestos is the greatest fireproofing material ever made.
It wasn't until 2024 that the US finally banned chrysotile asbestos. But this ban doesn't cover the other 5 types of asbestos, and it still allows some manufacturers up to 12 years to phase it out. It doesn't address what to do with asbestos already in schools and homes and other buildings, nor does it fix any of the numerous classification, identification, and detection loopholes, and it doesn't address the asbestos in the environment. On top of that, the EPA is already getting sued again.
There have been tremendous forces from commercial industries to make it sound like it's not as bad as it is, and to find ways to allow them to continue to use the material. This is a sad fact of our decision-making in our country and other countries, is that it's driven by money.
But at least the United States are going for some level of moderation. Other countries are not that lucky. In 2019, India imported more than 350,000 tons of asbestos, and it's predicted that in the upcoming decades, 6 million people there might develop asbestos-related diseases.
Oh mein Gott, no fucking way. Die Boomzeit von Indien, die bauen da ja auch so viel.
And similar things are happening in many of the other countries in Asia. We've actually found this website where it looks like you can just buy asbestos cloth made in China, but please don't. And all of the asbestos that we've already mined, even after we stopped using it, it's still out there. Asbestos doesn't naturally decay in the environment. So should you be worried? Well, having asbestos in your house doesn't automatically mean that it's dangerous. If you have asbestos in your ceiling and you don't drill into it, you're probably going to be fine. Asbestos is an issue if the particles go airborne. But who knows which house has asbestos, where all of that asbestos is, who's going to take care of it, and how. So a lot of the answers to these questions just don't exist yet. But if you're worried about asbestos exposure for yourself, check out the links that we've put in the description. I think a big part of the problem is that people assume asbestos is a solved issue. And I'll be the first to admit, I fell for that line of thinking. Here's the ending I wrote for our PFAS video.
We've been here before with leaded gasoline, Freon, and asbestos. And each time we did the research and made the right decision to phase.
I was completely oblivious.
We will look back at our history, and what do we do with tobacco? Everybody was smoking, right? It would be improper for me to not offer an ashtray, even if I wasn't a smoker back in the day. And all the scientists working for the big cigarette companies said, why? Tobacco never hurt anybody. But because of the outcry and the recognition that smoking causes disease,
ja, der Tabakvergleich ist sehr gut.
Everybody knows someone who died because of cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
Now you might find out that asbestos-related diseases has touched you in some way. You don't even know yet.
Yeah.
I didn't know my grandfather died because of asbestos, that my father is dying, more likely than not, because of asbestos. Did I know that when I started looking at asbestos under a microscope? No. Did I know that when I changed the brakes on the Jeeps that I ran around in? No. Did I know that when I ran around through asbestos-containing dust? No. Now I do.
Pretty much every scientist and journalist we spoke to for this video said the same thing. This is a hard story to get out there. They've faced economic pressure, political pressure, their research got buried, and some people even received death threats for reporting on the story. It is an uncomfortable topic. But I think it's these uncomfortable topics that matter the most, that have the potential to do the most good. Yet they are also the ones that are the most uncomfortable to watch. So I really appreciate you for sticking around to the end and facing the truth, making yourself aware, and becoming part of the solution. So perhaps now, more than ever, thank you for watching.
Das ist jetzt nicht ganz 2 Wochen alt, das Video. Es ist also sehr, 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 sehr aktuell. Ultra aktuell. Hier ist der Link dazu. Veritasium kennt ihr vielleicht, ne? Das ist riesig. Hat 7 Millionen Aufrufe schon. Oh.
You guys, what is with the emotional whiplash? I'm scared of y'all.
Within the last 3 years, I visited Germany for the first time, and I absolutely enjoyed myself.
Instead of confining themselves to the heavens, God should broaden their horizons and the world below.
Germany in particular for the first time. I think that's something that any reasonable person should do before traveling anywhere they haven't been to for the first time. So naturally, my guilty pleasure has been enjoying other people's experiences in Germany or anywhere else throughout Europe or any new country they travel to outside of the United States, because of course in the United States it almost seems like it's discouraged, like strongly discouraged to see a worldly view. And I think now more than ever that matters a ton, especially considering the global state of affairs. That's what led me to this video. I stumbled up on my feed and I felt like I had to talk about it because this individual had an experience that was self-inflicted. She was like, yeah, Germans are real mean, they're hot and cold, you know what I mean? And I've heard the whole hot and cold thing before. A lot of Americans, when they travel to Germany for the first time, they'll be like, oh my God, everybody here is so cold. They don't do the overly fake friendly hi, how are ya? Small talk is absolutely dead, and it's just, you know, a little bit gloomier than casual conversations and things of the sort in the United States. But that's because you're in Germany and you just need to understand the culture and whatever. But in this particular case, I thought it was absolutely insane that she didn't recognize what the issue actually was.
So, I like Germans. I have German friends.
I got you, boss.
Let's get down to business.
Look alive!
More!
Gloves off!
Say no more! The very hyper.
Buckle up!
But some of y'all freaking scare me. I just tried to go to the
Consensus is the general consensus, no matter if you're in the United States, no matter if you're anywhere in Europe or anywhere in Asia, anywhere globally, you just don't show up to places when they're clearly about to close.
I'm like, 4 minutes. You guys are still open. Wir schließen 21 Uhr. Alle müssen in 4 Minuten gehen. And I'm like, yeah, I look inside. There's still people there. Inch a little closer. And she stopped me like this. And I said, I just want to buy one thing. And she's like, yeah, everyone just wants to buy one thing.
Not the busiest of my days. I suppose I'm doing a good job taking care of the shrine. Busiest of my days.
Thing. I'm just looking at her like, okay. She's like, what do you want to buy? And I said, broccoli?
Broccoli? You couldn't have waited till the next day to get your broccoli? What was so pressing that you needed to make that you needed broccoli right then and right there? You could have made something else. Her whole attitude about this is what blows my mind, because it's like a strong sense of entitlement. You know what I mean?
It was closing at 9. I got there at 8:56. I'm like, 4 minutes. You guys are still open.
And what's crazy, right? I'm over here criticizing her, and I have done the exact same thing. I'm, again, not innocent of the same offense. It happened 12 years ago. I went to an ice cream parlor, right, which is even crazier. They were closing, and I was walking on the pier with some friends, and I'm like, man, I really want some ice cream. And they're like, yeah, man, but well, it's pretty much closed. And I'm like, no, dude, the hours say 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And it was like 7:55 p.m. And so I was inconsiderate as hell, and I went up to the cash register and I'm like, hey, could I get the turtle ice cream cone thing or whatever? They all looked at me because I could see in the background they had finished wrapping up all of the materials, all of the ice cream. They put it all away. They had just finished washing everything, and I didn't care. I'm like, I just want my ice cream. They're like, you can't just come back tomorrow? And I'm like, no, like I really want this. Like I really want it. And they're like, oh. And they like all sighed. They unwrapped everything. Then my friend's like, you know what? I'll get an ice cream too. And then my other friend's like, yeah, I'll get one too. And they were all livid. I could tell. But I didn't put two and two together at the time. I'm like, why are they so upset? This is their job. Make ice cream, serve it to the customers. I had zero consideration for the workers at all, because one of the friends that was with me was the only friend that did not get the ice cream. And he was like, yo, guys, it is not that serious. He never told me why it wasn't that serious in the moment, but after the fact, I think the catalyst that caused me to reflect was he's like, dude, these workers were closing. They were like excited to go home, and you just ruined everything. They cleaned all their tools, their materials. They put the materials up, and you show up 5 minutes to closing, and they should have turned your ass away. But I guess they had some kindness in their heart and opened all their stuff up, served you ice cream, and then put everything back up. You know, it was crazy. So this same attitude that we're seeing here is the typical American entitlement. It's like, well, I still see people in the store, so you're clearly open. See, karma did come to get me, by the way. There is a good ending to this story. Karma got me in the craziest way. The self-reflection, that was like, okay, cool, I shouldn't do that again. I wound up working at a pizza place 5 years later, and we were closing. We had put everything up, and we had a customer come in 2 minutes to closing, and I was gonna turn them away, but my manager stepped from behind me and she's like, oh yeah, we'll take care of you. What do you want? This person proceeds to order 6 pizzas, and we put all the stuff away, all the dough away, all the toppings and whatnot. We had turned the oven off, everything. So we had to warm up the oven, pull everything out of the freezer. All the dishes that were done, we had to do the dishes again. It was a whole fiasco. We were in there for like an extra 2 hours. It was diabolical.
She was like, you buy your broccoli, you go to the checkout, and then you leave. And I'm like,
and they realize they want more than just one thing. She should have not let this lady in, man. I'm telling you, like, this individual is the problem. This individual is the problem. An American in Germany not connecting the dots as to why her situation just did not go smooth.
she gives me this look like, girl, don't do it. But I'm a paying customer, so I did.
Take me up!
Did it. Brought my broccoli on my picnic. You said you
That's just, it's inconsiderate to the workers.
But I saw you also bought a pear, and I was so shocked.
Another
I just
test
looked at her
subject.
like, huh?
Going
and
somewhere?
She's laughing and is like, just kidding. I shouldn't have enough. Guys, what is with the emotional whiplash?
This is a self-inflicted gunshot.
My blade!
Witness the power of Gugwa! Get to work!
How's this?
Did not happen.
See no more! That's you.
And I know, like, the worker was just being nice, but to prove their point, to prove the worker's point, I know this isn't gonna just be a one-thing.
Let's get it on!
Here earlier, you know what I mean?
The wrong
There's
test
nothing in this
subject.
world that was that fun where you had to get right.
We got careless.
Come on, man. And I know
the wrong
the
test
justification was, well, there
subject.
were other people in the store, so I don't see the big deal. You know, that's the problem. But there's hope, because I thought I was crazy. I thought I was overreacting when I watched this video, which is why I'm making this video. First of all, am I overreacting? Do you think that this is like, you know what, it's not a big deal. If a store is about to close, go in, get what you need to get, and get out. Or do you think that you should have a little bit of consideration, be aware of when the store closes, and try to get there at the latest, maybe an hour or even 30 minutes before the store closes. 30 minutes is diabolical. I would say an hour before the store closes. I'm trying to push it on the later side. But 4 minutes before any store or establishment closing and you're trying to get some type of service out of them is wicked work. 4 minutes is too short to come into a grocery store. Respect the workers. Seriously. Little respect goes a long way. And that did not click at all when she told this story. At all. She's like,
Guys, what is with the emotional whiplash?
then this caused me to reflect on other videos I have watched, and even videos I have made myself. And I'm like, hold on, let's take a step back. How are you behaving, and what was the response to your behavior? You know? And then I'm realizing a lot of the stereotypes come from other people bringing their defaultism into said country. So let's just, for this example, Americans traveling to Germany, bringing their defaultisms with them, right? Bringing all their habits and whatnot and applying it to Germany. And then they get a very visceral response that they're not used to, and they're like, wow, Germans are mean, bruh. And Germans are like, Americans are inconsiderate, bruh. Very inconsiderate. This is making a lot more sense. The culture shocks and all those other videos I've seen, a decent portion of them are probably just as self-inflicted as what we just watched right now. As an American retail worker, I'm 100% with the German workers here. There's a special layer in hell for people who show up to stores 5 minutes before the store closes. That's what I'm saying. When she uttered those words, I'm so surprised. Nothing clicked. Nothing clicked. She's like,
4 minutes. You guys are still open.
Anywhere would be like that. Yeah, I mean, even like in Asia, the customer service is peak, right? You show up before closing and they have to keep a smile on their face, you know what I mean? But deep down inside, they're like, yo, you're evil. And the fact that you don't know that you're evil means you're doubly evil. People who go in places right before close are insufferable. And you know what's crazy? They have attitudes that are just like hers. The common excuse, but there's other people in there. Why can't I go in? There's other people in there. Yeah, I know there's only 2 minutes to close, but there's other people in there. I can go in there too. But you know what else I can't believe? I cannot believe you have not hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. It's insane. We're in 2026 and I still have less subscribers than Mr. Beast. But you guys can help with that. Believe me. Go ahead and hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you like what you're watching. The comments definitely passed the vibe check. And that's what was most refreshing watching this video. The comment section. The comment section absolutely eviscerated her. They're like, no, you're in the wrong. There's a lot of different things like, oh, people respond this way because that's just how things are here, whatever. What she experienced, she would have experienced in any other country as well. Yeah, workers are frustrated because why would you show up directly right before closing? You've never worked minimum wage hourly, have you? She clearly hasn't. And if she did, she probably worked an early shift and stuff, maybe a few hours and then clocked out, because ain't no way she worked a late shift ever in her life. Because acting like that and having worked a late shift, that means there is an even deeper part of the underworld waiting for you after you croak. Even for a Spanish person who goes late to everything, understand that 4 minutes is too short to enter, and I will be thankful that they actually let you in to buy a broccoli. That's what sent me. If it was going to the store for some medical reason or whatever, getting some medication or whatever, and I know German stores don't get down like that in their grocery stores or whatnot. You don't really sell over-the-counter medication and stuff like that in like grocery stores. There's like places for that, I guess. Maybe you do, but from what I was told, that's not like a common thing, you know? Any other item, especially, bro, broccoli, produce like that, like if it was like meat or something, even still, like you could wait until the next day. Have an alternate meal. You know, you have something at home. If you have nothing at home at all, order something, okay? Because 4 minutes before closing is wicked. This is why Europeans have good work-life balance. They're allowed to say no to customers or tell them to go when it's time to close. I have the same experience in Berlin, but in a small shop. She told us that she's closing in 15 minutes, so we have to check out right now and stop sightseeing. So we did. Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's like paramount that you pay attention to those things. Like you're aware of your surroundings so you can get in and get out. You know what I mean? Especially when it's getting close to closing. I mean, like, you know, I was looking at this and I'm like, man, another cool German culture shock thing, and I'm watching and I'm like, hold up, she did this to herself. What is wrong with her? What got me is she was genuinely confused as to why the worker was hot and cold, but the cold part came from her doing something diabolical. Would you guys, based on what you saw, would you have let her in? I know it's just one item, so maybe a lot of you guys would have let her in. I wouldn't. Womp womp. What about you work in a grocery shop and do the closing shift, and then we talk again? Yeah, that seems fair. That seems like a fair verdict. The case of this lady going into the grocery store and accusing the worker of being hot and cold with her, and she's saying like, you know, oh my God, you guys are scary. Was this her fault? I find her guilty. Punishment is definitely working the late shift and having the same experience. You guys agree with that? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you have not subscribed already, take your finger and hit that button.
Lass uns mal Simplicissimus gucken, weil der Iran-Angriff ja immer so eine große Rolle spielt.
Es ist etwa 6 Uhr morgens in Israel. Kampfjets heben vom Boden aus. Die sind mit hochpräzisen Langstreckenraketen bewaffnet. Der CIA und dem israelischen Geheimdienst zufolge hat sich ein Großteil der iranischen Führungsriege hier versammelt.
Crazy. Okay, der Angriff auf den Iran am Samstagmorgen.
Diese Anlage in Teheran. Unter ihnen befindet sich auch Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, der oberste Führer des Iran. 2 Stunden und 5 Minuten nach Abflug der Kampfjets wird das Grundstück von israelischen Raketen getroffen. In diesem Video rekonstruieren wir, wie die Angriffe von Israel und den USA auf den Iran abgelaufen sind.
Ruhe in Urin.
Wie das Oberhaupt des Landes getötet wurde und was seitdem passiert ist.
Khamenei hat den süßen Trank des Märtyrertums getrunken. Bruder, was ist das? Nordkorea? Fucking what, Bro? Bruder, ich verstehe, dass hier so ein bisschen Acting gemacht werden muss, aufgrund der Tatsache, dass du sonst enthauptet wirst. Aber Alter, bleib mal ruhig, ey. Bleib mal ruhig, Bro. Bleib doch mal ruhig.
Wir können nur dank unserer starken Partner so schnell und redaktionell unabhängig auf wichtige Ereignisse wie im Iran reagieren. Vielen Dank an Clark für das Vertrauen und die jahrelange Unterstützung unserer Arbeit. Clark bringt Ordnung in eure Versicherung. Alles in einer App. Digital, jederzeit abrufbar und völlig transparent. Bei komplexeren Themen wie einer Berufsunfähigkeitsversicherung oder zum Thema Altersvorsorge könnt ihr euch kostenlos und persönlich von Experten digital beraten lassen. Dabei könnt ihr selbst auswählen, mit welchem Berater ihr sprechen wollt. Das Besondere, Clark agiert dabei als euer digitaler Versicherungsmakler. Clark ist damit gesetzlich dazu verpflichtet, eure Interessen gegenüber den Versicherungsgesellschaften zu vertreten. Wenn ihr eure Versicherungen auf den Prüfstand stellen wollt, scannt jetzt den QR-Code oder nutzt den Link in der Beschreibung. Registriert euch mit dem Code Simply und ladet bis zu 3 bestehende Versicherungen hoch. Für jede Versicherung erhaltet ihr einen 15 € Shop-Gutschein, also insgesamt bis zu 45 €. Danke an Clark für die Unterstützung dieses Videos. Die Situation im Nahen Osten ist dynamisch. Wenn
Placement mit Clark? Gar nicht.
dieses Video erscheint, sind womöglich neue Details bekannt. Die Beziehungen zwischen den USA, Israel und dem Iran sind seit Jahrzehnten angespannt.
Sehr heiß,
1953 hat die CIA gemeinsam mit dem britischen MI6 den Sturz des demokratisch gewählten iranischen Premierministers Mohammad Mossadegh organisiert und finanziert. Der hatte im Zuge seiner Nationalisten...
Chance vertan für ein Matratzen-Placement, weil sich Khamenei schlafen gelegt hat, oder was?
Agenda auch die Verstaatlichung der heimischen Ölindustrie vorangetrieben. Die befand sich zu diesem Zeitpunkt in Teilen in der Hand britischer Firmen. Außerdem befürchtete die USA einen stärkeren Einfluss kommunistischer Kräfte in der Region. Die CIA und der MI6 planten den Staatsstreich mit Hilfe der iranischen Armee. Der pro-westliche Schah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi wurde zum herrschenden Autokraten. 1979 wird sein Regime im Zuge der Islamischen Revolution,
das muss man glaube ich nochmal sagen, das ist wichtig,
organisiert und finanziert. Der hatte im Zuge seiner nationalistischen Agenda auch die Verstaatlichung der heimischen Ölindustrie vorangetrieben.
Die Verstaatlichung der Ölindustrie im Iran.
Die befand sich zu diesem Zeitpunkt in Teilen in der Hand britischer Firmen.
Und dann?
Außerdem befürchtete die USA einen stärkeren Einfluss kommunistischer Kräfte in der Region.
Und was ist die Folge?
Die CIA und der MI6 planten den Staatsstreich mit Hilfe der iranischen Armee. Der pro-westliche Schah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi wurde zum herrschenden Autokraten.
Genau, der Schah wurde installiert. Das hat dann wieder eine Folge gehabt, eine Konsequenz.
1979 wird sein Regime im Zuge der Islamischen Revolution gestürzt.
Ja, von Khomeini.
Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini übernahm die Kontrolle über das Land und rief die Islamische Republik aus. Er hat den Iran in ein Land verwandelt, das nach islamischem Recht regiert wird. Khomeini ist auch vom pro-westlichen Kurs der Schahs abgekommen.
Weil der Schah autokratischer